What is up, everybody, and welcome to the NFL Showdown Pre-Lock Show. One last time for the NFL 2024-2025 NFL season. I'm here, a little three-man boot. We're going to get you through the biggest game of the year, so we got to bring out the big guns. Three-man boot. Davis and Beer here today. Start off with Beermaker over here, my OG. Beer, how's it going, man? How did you enjoy your 2024-25 season as it comes to a wrap here?
Well, I can't believe it's over already. I mean, we draft all summer in best balls. We're so excited. Weeks one's here, and then it's like boom, 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 boom. Playoffs are here, and here we are. So we always say it. The season just flies by. It was a great season, couple big hits this season, and we always say that's what it takes. You know, NFL, you're not going to win every week. You're not going to win every slate. You're going to have your ups and downs. Couple big hits can make your season and catapult you into MLB, golf, whatever it is that you follow up with. So I know a lot of people aren't excited about this matchup. We just had it 2 years ago. I know there's a lot of, I'm sick of the Chiefs, the referees, all that talk. To me, you know, these are obviously two of the best teams. I'm excited. I think we get a great game here. So it's a Super Bowl. I don't care who's playing, Chop. It could be Jacksonville and Carolina. I'm watching it. So excited to talk about the game. Excited to have Davis here. I don't know if we've ever done a show together. So should be a good time today.
I'll concur on that. I'll watch the game no matter who's playing. It's a Super Bowl. I'll at least watch for the commercials and the food and all that good stuff. But it's going to be a good game. So, Davis, I'll turn it to you. Just a little recap here. How'd you feel about your 2024-25 in general? Mentally, emotionally, physically, your best balls, your DFS? How'd it go for you, man?
DFS actually went all right. I had a couple sweats, really good year in cash actually, which is always kind of fun. Horrible best ball year. Bad as it could have gone in best ball. You know, you don't believe in Saquon Barkley, you don't believe in Derrick Henry. No money for you. Pretty excited about this game. I actually think of all the teams in it, I mean, this is the best styles make fights, right? No disrespect to the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are just a worse version of the Chiefs. You know, no difference making players on offense, worse defense. Certainly Josh Allen played better than Mahomes this year, but they don't have a Worthy. You know, they have a Dalton Kincaid. And the Eagles, man, the Eagles are the best team for sure. No doubt. Would have been, I think, unjust for the Lions to have gotten in over them. You know, and I like the Lions. I like Dan Campbell. Everyone's rooting for the Lions. But what Howie Roseman and the Eagles have done, this might be the best collection of players, both sides of the ball. I mean, I'm really trying to think of another team that was this dominant on both sides of the ball with first team All-Pro after first team All-Pro. The combination of the pass defense and the offensive line, I can't really think of one. I mean, I'm sure there are other examples of it, but I can't really think of one. So I think it's going to be a great game, and I think the right two teams are in.
Man, yeah. I don't know if I agree with that one, Davis. If Detroit had not suffered all those catastrophic injuries on defense at the end of the year where nobody could get healthy for them, I think they'd be here, man. They would have had to go into their home stadium. I think they'd be here. I know everybody wants to give Howie his roses, but I'm just not as big of a fan. But I'm a Cowboys fan, so I'm a natural. I was born into. I was a natural.
But think about it. I mean, even think about how it's constructed.
Yeah.
Every other team had a chance to take Jalen Hurts. He was the 58th overall pick. Every other team had to take a chance.
He stinks, man.
No, dude. Chop, that should go so against what you think because you're old school, bro. You should respect the quarterback who just wins.
He's a nice grinding runner, but boy, he's a bad passer. But that's fine. Jalen Hurts.
No one beats
for
him,
the life
brother.
of me. For the life of me. I don't know why Atlanta gave up Jalen Carter like that. Okay, that was the biggest coup right there in the draft.
Well, I think you do know.
Well, okay, that's fine. All right, but they handed that one to him on a silver platter. Everything else, how he does is just get every single one of you guys as mock drafts and aggregates them and then takes the pick. I mean, so of course he's a darling in your guys' eyes, but that's fine. Davis, I got news for you. This time next year, this NFC Championship will either be won by Green Bay if they can get that number one wide receiver.
Wow.
If they can get that number,
I didn't see that coming.
Or I don't know.
You think Jalen Hurts stinks, but you like Jordan Love?
I actually do think Jordan Love's a bit overrated compared to what everybody, but they've got some talent. Or they'll be battling out in that NFC Championship. If things go right and they stay healthy, your Dallas Cowboys, brother. I'm telling you, I love these coordinators. Schottenheimer, I thought was a terrible hire, but I see the vision, Davis. Davis, I see the vision. These coordinators are off the charts. These coaches he's hiring are off the charts, man. I'm just telling you, just buckle up, brother. Buckle up. But anyway, we got a good one here. All right. All that being said, this game boils down to a coin flip, 1.5 point spread. That's nothing in these days. That's a coin flip. 48.5 total. Again, geez, I could play this out 1,000 times. I have no idea if it goes over or under. Like, it's just it could be all kinds of things. So we're going to walk you guys through some DFS and some props, some bets, just talk about the game in general. We got plenty. If you're in the chat, fire off any question you want answered because we're here. That's what we're here for. Otherwise, we're just going to talk about it. Let's just get into some players, DFS-wise, position by position. Let's kind of break this game down here. I'll start off with Beer, and we'll talk about quarterbacks because we already talked about Hurts a little bit. I don't know. I'm just not the biggest fan. But, but on the other side there, boy, we've got a guy going for, like, history. Like, this could put him in the pantheon. He's already probably the best ever. I mean, I apologize to the Brady lovers, but he's already, like, up there. Beer, Mahomes, Hurts in this DFS, though. One game, how do you think this is going to play out for these guys?
So, I mean, if we're talking real life, give me Patrick Mahomes. We were talking pre-show. They just find a way to win, and that's key components to this game. I think this one stays close. We'll talk our predictions at the end of the show, so won't spoil that. But if I'm talking quarterbacks, I prefer Jalen Hurts. We're comparing real life and fantasy. Fantasy, we know Hurts has a lot more upside. And yes, Mahomes can add some value with his legs, but Hurts gives you that push upside, the touchdown upside, and he is the much better runner of the two. So ceiling wise, I'm going to give the edge to Jalen Hurts here. 5 games of 29 or more DraftKings points. So that's the kind of ceiling that you're looking for when you're putting these guys in your lineup. So, right around the same price point. So there's not a huge discrepancy there, but he does look a little bit cheaper. We'll talk some FanDuel here shortly. Looks cheap over there, only $400 more on DraftKings. Obviously, both of these guys are in play. They're both going to be 2 of, if not the highest owned players on this slate. I prefer the fantasy upside with Jalen Hurts in this one.
Fair enough. Now I'm going to go to Davis here. Davis, I'm going to give you some stats here, man. Maybe I can. Maybe it. I know you already know this stuff, but for the people out there, for the people.
Give me the stats.
So we've had 2 playoff games for Mahomes so far. Hadn't gone over 26 passing attempts yet, because that's kind of their MO. That's what they've defaulted to these last few years in the playoffs, right? Grind it out, time control, all that. Jalen Hurts hasn't gone over 28 pass attempts since week 5 or something like that, like 14 straight games, since they decided Saquon was our answer. He hadn't reached 28 pass attempts or 29 pass attempts. So I feel like, we're kind of looking at 2 teams that want to do the same thing, which is in different ways. Limited possessions here is what I'm getting at. Oh, and by the way, Mahomes is in the Super Bowls for Mahomes. 66, 44, 33, 29. That's his rushing totals from each of his past 4 Super Bowls.
And keep in mind, one of those, the last one, it's fake. He lost 15 yards on a kneel down in the last one.
And one of them,
or the first one.
And the one of them, he went in there with that high ankle sprain that we thought, that might keep him out of playoff games. So I mean, and it's steadily gone up over the years here. So he's using the legs more and more in the Super Bowl as we get to crunch time. I don't know. So you break these 2 quarterbacks down. Does any of that sway you anything? If we're not going to have a lot of pass attempts in this game, or Mahomes is going to take off and run? How do you feel about the quarterbacks?
I mean, the number one thing that sways me is that you got to remember what this slate is. It's the biggest fish slate of the year. People won't be playing showdown lineups all year. They're playing showdown for this. A lot of people not using SimLabs. A lot of people not using lineup HQ. A lot of people just building by their hands. And what is your buddy who hasn't played showdown all year? What does he want to do? Buddy, he wants to play Barkley. You know what he doesn't want to do? He doesn't want to take Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts stinks. Jalen Hurts stinks, dude. I don't want to play Jalen Hurts.
I want to meet that guy.
Yeah,
that was just you a minute ago.
That was just
you want to meet that guy.
Exactly.
You are that guy.
I want to have a beer with that guy.
You are that guy.
He's reading my mind.
There's going to be a lot of those guys out there. And so I think Jalen Hurts, particularly Jalen Hurts and the captain, looks like one of the best clicks over. It just looks like super leverage, under-owned. A lot of the mid-tier guys, that's something you see in more casual slates. There's going to be a lot of like Goddard, Devonta Smith and the captain because it's cheap and you go, I don't want to play Jahan Dotson. I want to play Kareem Hunt. So why don't I just make Dallas Goedert my captain? So I really like Jalen Hurts in the captain. I like Mahomes a lot in the flex. I like him a little bit less in the captain just because I think he should be a little over-owned there probably.
So I'm going to ask this to both of you guys, and I'll start it off with Beer because so what you just said and what Beer said, Hurts is, the favorite between you two guys, and you kind of like I'm not saying you're down on Mahomes, but in showdown, we typically don't like to use a really non-running quarterback in the captain spot. But then I look at the Chiefs team, and man, I just don't see how they're going to get to run very much at all in this game with their running backs are not for their career maybe, but currently their running backs are washed. So they have no running game. It's going to have to fall on Mahomes' shoulders. What's like your level of envy for taking Mahomes in the captain spot? Any interest there at all, Beer?
I prefer Hurts, and I think we're going to get a nice discount on the ownership. I think Mahomes, like David said, there's going to be a lot of new people, and they want to play Barkley. They want to play Mahomes. That's who they know. They're riding this. The refs are with Mahomes. Everyone's starting to pile on this, even though they're not betting on it. They just want to complain about it. But I still prefer Jalen Hurts. Again, the upside of the tush push and a direct kind of leverage, like Davis mentioned, off of Saquon Barkley, who I think is going to be overowned. This is not an easy matchup. This team does not allow a ton of production. I think it's 18 straight games of no 100-yard rushers. Can he do it? Absolutely. This guy was the best running back in the league, offensive player of the year, but I think he's going to have a ton of ownership. That leverage could be with Hurts, or play them both, play them together. A lot of people don't want to do that. I know it eats up a lot of salary, but there are some cheap ways you can go here. So Hurts is still my favorite captain for sure. One thing to know with Mahomes, if you're betting that rushing prop, you guys mentioned it, he doesn't like to just kneel down. He loves to run back and lose 3, 4, 5, 6 yards. And sometimes, and I've seen it, I believe it was this season, he killed one of his rushing overs. He was already over, took a 4, 5, 6 yard negative. And in the NFL, those are considered rushing yards. So just something to think about. I know that's going to be a prop a lot of people are looking at. You're hearing a lot of Mahomes runs more in the playoffs, going to have to run, like you mentioned, without Hunt, without Pacheco being very effective here. And as we're going to transition to running backs, a little hot take, I think Samaje Perine is the most interesting running back if we're talking about the Chiefs.
Oh,
yeah,
well.
I love that.
Oh, slow down, guys. Slow down. We're going to running backs right now. I like that hot take because I have some takes myself too. But let's go to running back, and I'm going to start off with Davis on this one because I have a specific question for you. It seems pretty obvious what the Eagles really want to do in this game and what makes them really good, and that's they're able to get Saquon the ball, and it's not even that he's like this down after down. He's going to just 7-8 yards. It's the explosive plays that he gives. Like that's what sets him apart from everybody else in the league. But your team, the one thing I take away from this entire playoff run they've had, and it's all due respect to everybody, but the one name that sticks out to me is playoff Spags. Like this guy can game plan better than any defensive coordinator for a playoff game that I've ever seen. So I'm sure he's got something cooked up. I don't know what it is. He's got something cooked up. So to start off with, for you, running back Saquon versus playoff Spags, like how do you think that plays out?
I mean, it's pretty interesting. You know, the only guy to have 100 rushing yards against Kansas City this year, it's Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson, the only player to get to 100 rushing yards, right? Not Henry in that game. It was Lamar. I believe the stat is that since the Chiefs' first Super Bowl, they have not allowed a 100-yard rusher in the playoffs, period, in the Mahomes playoff era. Outside, I think they did in the first playoff loss to New England, if I remember correctly. But they make you beat them in other ways. They swarm. I mean, obviously they're just so well coached. The scheme is so strong. Barkley looks like probably the most overowned guy of the slate, but also like, I mean, if you're playing 150, 200 teams, you're not going lighter on Barkley. There's just no way you're setting yourself up for that Super Bowl Sunday. So I think what you do instead of being like, oh, I'm going to fade Barkley, is you get over on AJ Brown, you get over on Devonta Smith, you get over on Goddard, you get over on Hurts and the captain. On the Kansas City side, you got to answer a pretty big question, which is Pacheco's role going to diminish because the game is so important? Like, you can't really be wasting possessions. You can't really be wasting plays in the Super Bowl. I wonder if Pacheco just might not play or get like 2 carries, get like 1 third down snap. I like what Beer had on P. Ryan. He's $1,600 on DraftKings. Biggest play of the game against the Bills, 3rd down to win the game. Play to Samaje P. Ryan, who's had some of the biggest performances in the Chiefs era. Jerick McKinnon and P. Ryan, obviously not as good as McKinnon, but they're playing the same role. I think P. Ryan is like an awesome differential piece.
It's one of those things. Where were you when Luka got traded? Where were you when Samaje P. Ryan rushed for like 400 yards in college?
I remember exactly. I remember where I was.
I was in a hotel room in California sweating the DFS, and this guy goes for 407 touchdowns. But yeah, so I think that's interesting. Beer, I'm going to go to you. Saquon versus playoff Spags, and then elaborate on some of your other P. Ryan takes.
So Saquon, I agree with Davis. It's hard to go into the slate, depending on how many lineups you're going to play, and not have any. And it's the explosives. You know, he can break a run at any time. You faded him. You're already moving on to the nachos and the wings, and your DFS slate is over. So if anything, for me, I'll probably take an underweight approach because I do think he's going to be so popular, going to be a popular captain. I still want to have some in my portfolio, just not as much as the field's going to have, with all the hype on Saquon Barkley. So underweight for me on him, not a complete fade. I will be fading Pacheco. I agree. I don't see them giving him significant work. You can make the argument, well, it's 2 more weeks that he can get healthy, but he's had all of this time and he just does not look like himself. So Kareem Hunt, I think you're betting on a touchdown. The interest in P. Ryan is twofold, and this is risky. And anytime you're down here under 2K, everybody's risky, but they're not going to be, they shouldn't be able to find much success on the ground. I mean, that Eagles front line is pretty stout. Yeah. So are they going to pound the ball in with Pacheco and Hunt? They're going to try. I don't know if they're going to find a lot of success. The success may come getting the ball to the running backs short, intermediate. That's how you beat this Philadelphia team. They're good against the run. They're very good against deep passes. They keep everything in front of them. Why not get the ball in P. Ryan's hand? A veteran who's been down these roads, a guy you can trust in pass pro, catching the ball. So again, he may do nothing, and that's you're going to have to take some risks though. But at that price point, I do think his role will increase, and it's not going to take a massive increase for him to pay off that number. So not for everybody, but I think P. Ryan, very interesting. A lot of ways they can get him the ball in that short and intermediate area.
So I gave you my thoughts, which is kind of a combination of both of that. Barkley is, man, he's interesting. Yeah, you can fold your laptop up if you're watching and he does the thing like against Washington, first touch, 60 yards,
first touch, yeah.
But listen, guys, if you're out there and you don't play very much, and we've talked about this all the time. You gotta have a specific game script in mind and roll with that. That's how you build your teams. It's not just plugging in who you think are the highest scores. You got to make your lineup has to make sense in showdown more than any other format. Saquon Barkley is maybe pretty close to it, maybe Derrick Henry, but one of the most game script sensitive running backs in the NFL. When this team is leading, that's when the explosive runs come at a clip of over 9%. And when they are trailing, that dips down to under 3%. You can do the math on that one. He needs the good game script, or it just doesn't happen. So if you're building the Saquon captain, have that game script in mind. But in the game scripts where, there's certain scripts where Barkley gets scripted out a little bit. He's not the Christian McCaffrey 4-down running back kind of thing. So be careful with that one. So I agree with all that. I'm going to give you guys a hot take here. And we are going to do props later on, props and bets. So I'll save the prop for that. But I'm going to tell you guys who I think is going to be the most productive backfield player for Kansas City in this game, running back position. His name is Xavier Worthy.
Yeah.
You're giving 2 weeks to Andy Reid to come up with this stuff. They're not going to pound. Pacheco he just hasn't bounced back from his injury. Maybe next year, good for him. Hunt's kind of washed. He just grinds it out. Piron's the pass catching running back. I would agree with that for sure. I think we see a lot more snaps out of Worthy coming out of the backfield to get those matchups that Andy Reid and his offense wants. So I like Andy Reid, and we'll talk. I got a prop for you later on to get there. But speaking of Worthy and receivers, I'm going to start off with Beer on this one. Let's talk about some receivers. KC, Philly. They couldn't be more polar opposite. Philly, we know exactly what we're going to get for snaps and everything. Like, we just know what they are. They're, very short list right there. KC, they can go anywhere. In fact, they can go so far anywhere. I got some stuff for you, Beer. You ready for this one?
I'm ready.
Last year, going into the Super Bowl, I don't think there was any – this is what Andy Reid does too, by the way. I don't think there was anybody saying, well, I got to play McCole Hardman. Well, 3 for 57 and a touchdown. Justin Watson last year, 3 for 54 in the Super Bowl. Year before that against Philly, washed up Juju, 7 for 53. He might hit optimals. And the biggest one, that Philly Super Bowl from 2 years ago, Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore, who were nothing burgers all year long, combined for 2 touchdowns. So, Beer, I ask you, out of this KC eclectic wide receiver group, who's going to be this year's come out of nowhere guy? Because it's going to happen, right? So, who's your favorite bet to do it? And then talk to me about Philly too.
Yeah, I'm glad you started with this, because this is going to be one of my key points. Is I think this is where this slate will be won, is taking chances on almost all of these Kansas City guys. I think that's where you're going to find the cheap value that hits. Philadelphia, we can't really come up with as many names. Jahan Dotson, is that a guy you want to take a risk on? I don't. Calcaterra, their guys are their guys, and those are the guys that are going to get the ball. But the Chiefs, like you said, guys coming out of everywhere. You never know out of this whole group who it will be. So I think Watson will be popular based on the price at only 600 and popular in the sense of this kind of group of guys. I'm not saying he's going to be 50% owned, but I think he'll get some juice here. Juju, we've seen a little, revitalize of here lately. My guy's going to be DeAndre Hopkins out of this group. I mean, they brought him in for a reason. We haven't seen a whole lot. And, we keep talking up Andy Reid. You have a severe weapon here in DeAndre Hopkins, who I do not think is washed, who hasn't really been unleashed here. This may be the time. I don't hate the Worthy call. I like Worthy. I think he's going to be very popular. It's a very fair price. His involvement in the passing game, in the running game. But I think DeAndre Hopkins kind of in between the Juju / Watson, and I'm going to be mixing them all in. Let me put that out there. I want a good helping of all of these guys in my lineups, mixed and matched in different ways, and really want to be over the field on all 3 of those guys. But Hopkins, the guy that I'm going to go to here as my pick for these Chiefs receivers.
Davis, I like that call, but there's a piece of me I'm wondering is Hopkins going to come out and be that guy that's cheap and they game plan him and he does this thing in the Super Bowl and it's like, oh my God, DeAndre Hopkins. There's also another piece of me that says they are going to feed him to the Wolves and just occupy Quinyon Mitchell with him all game long. And it's a non-threat, and we don't care about, this is from the Chiefs side. We're not focused on Hopkins anyway, so let him occupy their best cover corner, and then we'll take advantage all over the rest of the field. What do you think about Hopkins? And then talk to me about the other guys.
I will. So I think probably I'm just going to be overweight on all the dust balls. Like I'm going to be overweight on Hopkins, on Juju, on Jahan Dotson, on Noah Gray, on Calcaterra, on Justin Watson. Because I think, I mean, this is just kind of how you win these slates, right? It's how you win these slates in a way that you like, not chopping with 500 of your friends. Juju is my favorite of the group, but I'm worried that because he's 2,000 and he had that, what do you have, 66 yards last week? Like, I'm worried he's the one that becomes like, what is the ownership difference going to be between Dotson and Juju? Maybe 20% to Juju, 3% to Dotson or something. It's like, well, then Dotson's just like a way better pick. Yeah. Juju probably is my favorite though. 70% of the routes. Well, actually, the best play is Hollywood. Hollywood is 5,400, and I mean, he just looks great. He just looks like he's fully like Ravens Hollywood again.
Well, they get him the ball, though, not just with deep shots. That's the thing. Again,
yes.
Philadelphia, a lot of, you want the crossers. We're going to get to Kelsey. Fits him pretty well here. Zone defense. Is Hollywood going to be that guy, Chop, that maybe they sack? I don't see them taking Quinyon Mitchell and saying, we need you to lock down DeAndre Hopkins. If anything,
No.
it's Brown or Worthy, whichever one's on the outside.
He's going to stay on one side of the field. Like, he doesn't move. So he's going to stay there. He's going to play. And I'm just wondering if they take a washed if Hopkins, they haven't seen anything in practice maybe, and say, you know what, you just line up over there on the left side of the formation and he's going to cover you. And that's just the way to, like, Mitchell's not going to move. That's one thing about the defense you don't have to worry about. But and then I got a question for both of you guys real quick, because Davis mentioned he's going to be overweight on these KC wide receivers. Start off with Davis. How many KC wide, for anybody out there, playing this and they don't play that much, how many KC wide receivers is too many in one lineup and to a point where you're just diminishing returns, man?
3 is probably the highest.
And
number.
Do you have to have Mahomes in captain to do that?
No, because if you think about it, 3 Chiefs wide receivers in a lineup. How many lineups in the pool are going to have 3 Chiefs wide receivers? Not many. But if there are 3 Chiefs wide receivers, they're like exceedingly likely to have Mahomes in the captain and even more likely to have him in the flex, if not in the captain. So actually you might think like, oh, I'm getting so unique, but actually you're probably almost leading yourself into a higher dupe range where if you're right, you're splitting with your friends. So I think it's actually easier to go the other way. Like if you, Showdown is so not, I mean, it can help to know ball, but like it is a game that is so much about knowing what your opponents are doing and what the computer is going to tell them to do,
Beer, how many KC wide receivers is too many for you in one lineup? I feel comfortable at 2. 3 is probably the max. 2 would be my preferred way. And if you're going that route, to me, it makes sense to have the Barkley, the Brown, the Hurts in the captain, because it in a story, if you're needing all these Chiefs wide receivers, they're likely having to throw the ball because they're playing from behind. So rather than a Mahomes captain, it would be a Hurts, a Barkley. They get out to a lead. They're putting up a big score. It's forcing Kansas City to throw a little bit more, utilize these guys a little bit more. So that would be the route that I would go to, get a little bit different from that Mahomes captain. So, we're getting comments about these guys in captain. Do we want to take it that far? Do we feel good enough about a Juju, a Hopkins, a Watson in captain, which would unlock, you could have Barkley, you could have Brown, you could have, 3 or 4 of these studs in your lineup. I don't know that I feel as good about him as if anything, I'd go with the Juju call. I think he has more upside than any of these guys, and the price is a little bit more prohibitive to do that. Hopkins, to me, still my favorite. He's more expensive, which is going to drive down the ownership. In our early ownership projections that are up right now, he's about half of what Juju is right now. So nobody wants to pay $4,400 for Hopkins. I get it, but that's part of the game. If nobody else wants to do it, that's when I want to do it.
To be the boss, you got to pay the cost, man. You got to do it sometimes. Listen, okay. This showdown may or may not. We just talked about receivers, and that may be the turning point. I kind of think maybe these tight ends we're going to talk about might be the turning point. We've kind of briefly mentioned them, but we've got some stuff going on here. You got Dallas Goedert on one side against a Chiefs defense that, let me check the numbers here real quick. Yep, they still give up the most receiving yards per game and the second most receptions per game to tight ends in the regular season, the Chiefs defense. So a lot of people around the industry, maybe not the newbies, but a lot of people are looking at Goddard anyway, saying, oh, this is the perfect matchup for him. He's going to be the guy. So you got that aspect. And then I'm looking at Travis Kelce. It's playoff Travis. I think we all just witnessed this Zach Ertz character look like prime Shannon Sharp against this defense in the NFC Championship game. So I think a lot of people are looking at Travis Kelce. I'm looking at Travis for a different reason. Davis, I want to ask you real quick before I get to your analysis. Who's going to cover? What are they going to do with Travis Kelce? Cooper DeJean, man-to-man?
No, they're going to say this dude's 34, man.
Oh, no,
we'll give it to you. We'll cover him. We'll cover him with the linebacker, one of the safeties. I don't think, dude, it's just like the thing you can't do if you're a great defense is give up explosives. And, no disrespect to Travis Kelce, but outside of that one play against the Texans where they entirely forgot to cover him, what's the last explosive Kelce play? And the Bills, to their detriment. So the Bills did everything they could. They did Milano, and then they kept the safety over him. They were chipping him. They were doing all kinds of stuff, and it just let Kansas City run like crazy. Mahomes was killing them on these scrambles, and Hunt was killing them because they were like some snaps they were lining 3 guys up over Kelce. Seemed like a terrible game plan to me, but that is what they did. Didn't really work that well for them. I think the Eagles will be more concerned with Worthy. I think they will be saying, we need to be bumping and chipping and punching and doing whatever we can to this guy because this guy can kill us. If Worthy gets around the edge, remember that crazy Will Anderson play against the Texans where he tackled Worthy through Jawan Taylor? Will Anderson doesn't make that tackle. That's easy 6. Worthy's around that edge and in the end zone before you can blink. And that is what the Eagles are going to be concerned about.
Okay. Well, so there's some things there. If I was thinking, okay, maybe if they do want to kind of put Cooper DeJean on him in the slot because he's going to be a slot tight end, that's a mismatch in terms of Kelce's still 6'5", 250. DeJean's about 200 pounds, about 6 foot 200. If you're going to put a linebacker on him, he's been known to torch the linebacker. So I think they got their hands full there. We just watched Philly again against Zach in the play. Tyler Higbee the week before that in the snow was killing this Eagles defense. So I think Kelce's going to be a popular pick as always. Goddard. You got Noah Gray, who I think is going to get some steam from some smarter people around the industry. So start off with Davis on the tight ends here. What's your thoughts, man?
What my main thought is that for a guy who plays a lot of snaps, Calcaterra is not going to be popular at all. The last couple games after Goddard came back, I thought Calcaterra, he'll go back to just being a backup, a bit player, and he wasn't. They've really trimmed into Dotson snaps, which actually makes sense because Dotson is useless and they're a running team now. They just run the air out of the ball. No reason to play 11 personnel when you can do that. He's got 1 target in the playoffs, but the thing I can't get out of my mind, who's going to catch a Philly special? Who's going to catch or they haven't done this in the playoffs yet, the fake tush push. You fake the push, you pull back, you throw the pop pass. Who's catching that? Yeah. Calcaterra, maybe. Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. I'd like to hear Beer's opinion on Calcaterra.
Yeah, I would as well.
Calcaterra and Noah Gray. Touch on Noah Gray because we haven't really hit on him as much.
I like them both. Noah Gray, a lot more expensive, will be way higher owned than Calcaterra, so you factor that in. But we've seen this guy have some big games, and it's always, you think it's Kelce, you're celebrating. Oh no, it's Noah Gray when you're watching it. They look very similar. So I like him. I like the Calcaterra call, especially if he's going to be. We're showing sub 5% owned. A touchdown pays that off all day of the week. Nobody has him. You're sitting very pretty in that scenario. So again, risky, but you got to take risks here. Whether you're playing some of these guys, whether you're leaving a ton of money on the table, If you build a lineup that's zeroed out, I can damn well guarantee you a lot of other people have that lineup. If it comes together super easy, boom, this is the winner. 1,000, 2,000 people are going to have that lineup. I mean, you're talking about going against, I think it's upwards of 290,000 people if you're playing the big one on DraftKings. So I love taking chances, taking risks. I'm either going to win or I'm going to lose. And plays like Calcaterra are the way to do that. So I like that call. As far as Kelsey goes, I'm probably going to be underweight. There's a lot of narratives. Playoff Kelsey, going to get the ball. I agree with Davis. He may rack up a lot of receptions, and that might get you there in DraftKings. He might have 6-7 catches, but it could be for 50 yards. And to keep him out of the end zone, he now disappoints with those 7 catches. I prefer Goddard. Both of these guys are going to have ownership. Looks like in the 30s in this one. But Chop, you mentioned Kansas City all season long. Tight end has been an Achilles heel for them. Goddard's role has really picked up here down the stretch. So especially in a game script where they have to throw a little bit more, A.J. Brown is the focus. That's going to open up Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert to do some damage.
Yeah, so during the regular season, I do like to look and keep up with what defenses do most often, which is it could be a little bit misleading anyway. But what do they play? Are they man? Are they zone? Do they go cover 1? Do they blitz a lot? Cover 4, cover 6. Cover 4, cover 6 is a Philly special this year with Vic Fangio. I'm a little bit less likely to do that in the playoffs and especially the Super Bowl because they will change their tendencies up. Smart coaches will. And Philly's already done that in the playoffs, changed up things a little bit. So I'm not really into that aspect of it. But one thing they do, and they won't get away from, well, they usually don't blitz. The only time they've blitzed this year, they've really gotten picked apart by it. So I don't think they do that. What they do, they don't give up the explosive plays. They keep everything in front of them. And when you make the short pass, they absolutely rush to the ball and gang tackle. That's how you get the fumbles and multiple times against Washington in the NFC Championship that swung the game and all that other stuff. So that's what they're going to do. So I got another bold prediction. I already went Worthy. This one's really off the map here, off the reservation. But Travis Kelce is going to catch something in the middle of the field and get slightly free, and then they're going to come and gang tackle him, Davis. And he's going to do the most Travis Kelce thing ever and lateral it back on purpose to a fast wide receiver who's going to be gone because Philly is so aggressive tackling. They're going to let a Worthy or a Hollywood catch that lateral from Travis Kelce.
I can so see that in my mind's eye, Chop. I'll tell you what, he might not actually pitch it, but a minimum of one time he's catching it in the middle of the field and he's going to look for it. I'll tell you that if you could bet that as a prop bet, that should be minus 10,000.
I can see him doing that. Yeah, sure.
I'm sure that bet is out there somewhere. I mean, we've seen some crazy bets, so you might have to hunt.
Travis, well, it didn't. I mean, it doesn't show up in the official box score, right? But I mean, you might have to go to an offshore for that. But they're definitely out there. Travis Kelce to attempt the lateral.
Just some way, shape, or form, they're going to use the aggressive Eagles defense against them. That's just okay. Let's move on. We're almost there to the end of the DFS stuff. But kickers and defense. Start off with you, Davis. Kickers and defense. Anything catching your eye?
Yeah. I mean, I hate to say it, but the Eagles defense is like one of the most overowned or underowned singular plays. I think they're like, I was running my stuff earlier and it showed they were 8% underowned, compared to like in the sim stuff. So I think that's just, you gotta suck it up and take them on that one, I think.
Beer, what do you, kickers and defense, and then he says Eagles defense. I'm looking at, I don't know how much the Chiefs are going to be owned, but if you get bad Jalen Hurts in the right game script, that could be a game winner.
Yeah, I mean, both of these defense, we're showing this whole grouping of kickers and defenses are all in the 15-ish% owned. So, people think of a high-scoring game. I don't want to play defenses. So I think the defenses will actually be lower owned than what we're showing. I think you could get around 10%. I agree with Philadelphia. I think they're the better defense. If there was a drastic difference in ownership, I don't mind playing the Chiefs. But Mahomes, we've seen this season, not as crisp, not as clean, and 11 interceptions on the season. Hurts only 5. So the problem is both of these teams, Philadelphia has their way. They want to run the ball. They want to pound it. That's not great for defenses. We want teams throwing, so a script where one team gets out ahead, maybe you cause more turnovers, more havoc, something like that. You build the defense in. As far as the kickers go, I prefer Butker. I think most people will after watching Jake Elliott shanking extra points, missing. If that were to drive his ownership down, I don't mind going that route, but Butker is just legit, man. Every kick right down the middle. We know Philadelphia is going to put up some stands where they stop this offense. I really like Butker here at sub 20%. So Butker, Eagles, my favorite, but honestly, I think all four of these are in play, especially if this ownership happens to drop any, stays under 20%. I think this is certainly one of the edges on the slate is to mix some of these in the lineup. I don't know about using two defenses, two kickers in the same lineup, but we've seen it win showdowns before. I think anything's in play, but these four, especially if they stay this low, very, very intriguing.
We're in a dome, and both of these defenses are similar in that they will bend, and then they won't break in the red zone. And one of these kickers could end up in the optimal line. They really legit could, man. So I think it's interesting. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, real quick. Guys, if you got any questions, fire them off. We're going to do some other stuff right now. If you got any questions, 1v1s or just whatever, fire them off. Do it. I do see one really weird question from Mardon, but I'd like to get you guys' opinion on this one. Beer, I'll start off with you. Power rank your top 3 Super Bowl snacks.
I mean, he said entrees too, so we'll just keep it with snacks. I mean, entrees, you can't really go wrong. I mean, you got pizza, you got wings, you got burger, whatever it may be. You're not going to go wrong on Super Bowl. But snack-wise, Chop, give me the spicy queso dip. Something a little get you fired up a little bit. Going in. You can use anything with that. You want chips, you want pita, you want pretzels. I like me a nice queso dip. Can't go wrong with the meatballs, things like that. But the queso dip, number one for me.
Davis, what you got?
I'm from the Midwest, so you know what I love, man. The shitty Velveeta cheese with the Rotel in it, man.
Yeah, get it. Get out here, man.
We're on the same page. You can go Velveeta. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I know that is total, trash Midwest, grew up in a small town food, but man, I just even thinking about that right now, I'm like, wow, that sounds incredible.
I mean, who's gonna hate on queso though? I'm representing here with cheese. That's what we're known for. Not winning playoff games, but the cheese. True. So who's gonna come in here and hate on any kind of cheese? You really can't go wrong.
Well, I see.
And the Rotel is what spices it up. That little can of Rotel, man.
You gotta have
that's money. You can put that on almost anything. You want to throw that on top of a steak? I'm good with it. That Rotel is magic in that can.
Yeah, I'm with you. Chips, queso. I like chips and salsa, chips and guacamole. Big chip guy. I love the dips myself. This year, I'm actually treating my wings as my appetizer. So
all right.
Got that going for us. Because
one more. I want to add one more. Those little pigs in a blanket, man.
Oh, so good.
The little hot dogs wrapped up.
Make those. We don't even need the Super Bowl to make those around here.
For sure.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah, all right. Any more questions, guys? Fire them off. Now we are going to talk about some props for this game. Speaking of props, if you want to crush your family members in your prop pool or get an edge in the sports books or find the NFL game of the season, try Props and Pick'em for a discount right now. The Props and Pick'em package features daily prop picks, fantasy Pick'em selections from a lot of those RotoGrinders experts. Beer is in there all the time dropping his picks. Very good at it. We're knocking off 50% of your price for the first month when you sign up with the link below. I'm going to drop a link for you. Get 50% off. Props and Pick. I'm always getting the emails for you got a 25% boost or something like that from Prize Picks, Underdog, whatever it is. I don't know what's going on that night, so I just go to the props package myself, and usually they're pretty much on the money, man. Beer and Kyle Murray and the boys do their thing. Buy them for with basketball. Everybody has their specialty, NHL guys, so it's worth it, man. It's definitely worth it. They know what they're talking about. So get you that props and pick package. Guys, let's talk about some props right now on any of these sites. It could be FanDuel, it could be DraftKings, Pick 6, Underdogs, Prize Pool. Any of our guys. We got let me see here. Player props, Splash, Sleeper, all those things, man. Let's start off with Davis on this one. You got any props for us and your reasoning behind them? How you think this is going to play out?
Okay, I got a couple that I've put in a bunch on Underdog. Mixing and matching these. The first one, I'm gonna throw you a total fastball. You're never in a million years gonna be ready for this one. Chamari Connor, the nickel third corner for the Kansas City Chiefs, rotational third, fourth, higher than 4.5 tackles plus assists. Basically, since Jalen Watson came back from his leg injury, the books have sort of assumed he's going to play more. And he's played some, but Chamari Connor's playing time has been unimpacted. And I believe my boy Sammy Reed, who does the Gilcast with me here on RG, is the one who alerted me to this. It's like he's got 5 or more tackles plus assists in like 6 of their most recent 8 games. So really, it's just a playing time thing that's messed up. My second most wagered one is P. Ryan over 6.5 receiving yards. You can also, if you're sketch about catches or receiving yards, you could do, I believe, 4.5 or 5.5 for his longest reception. So basically, he just converts 1 3rd and 6 or whatever. And then the one I have the most money on, this do as I say, not as I do, is Xavier Worthy higher than 56.5 receiving yards. I've got that one, teased up all the way to 99.5 and a bunch of different stuff. Those are my favorite ones.
Beer, you got any props for us?
Sure do. I got 2 on each side. I'm going to start with one that's already written up, and I'm a big fan of it. Is Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown. We talked about him in the opening. I was surprised to see this number this low. I'm seeing it as low as -115. Thought it would be up closer to -130, honestly, with that tush push. So the Chiefs, we talked about Barkley. Now here's some numbers. The Chiefs only allowed 9 rushing touchdowns to running backs, gave up 4 to quarterbacks. So, it's not a huge number, but it was in the bottom 10 of the league. So I like that one at -115. I'll stay with the Eagles here. And then I got 2 Chiefs props I like. Devontae Smith's been very good against this defense. And we know A.J. Brown is going to be the focus here for this past defense. So Devontae Smith, last 2 games against the Chiefs, and one of these going back to 2021. So that was 122 yards, but 99 yards last season. He's sitting at 49.5 on his receiving prop. So I like that one. As far as the Chiefs go, I'm going to go back to DeAndre Hopkins, and you could go one of 2 ways here. Receiving yards prop 11.5. That's likely 1 catch. So I don't mind that one, or you can get plus odds on over 1.5 receptions. I like both of those. And then I'm going to give you a boring one here. Not as exotic as Davis is, but Harrison Butker, I mentioned I really like in a dome. Philly's defense likely shuts them out a bunch. Over 7.5 kicking points for Butker, who has multiple field goals in 8 games this season. So Hurts, anytime TD, Devontae over 49.5, Hopkins either over 11.5 or plus odds on the over 1.5 receptions, and then Butker over 7.5 kicking points.
Yeah, so I have highlighted Devontae yards, receptions, or go there. I wouldn't put them both in the same parlay, but
wow, that is the first time I've heard someone put the French inflection on.
Oh, he always does. He did that for years on our podcast. He's called them go there for a decade.
I've said Dennis Schroeder for a long time. Like I don't know, man. Yeah, go there. Goddard. Yeah.
No, don't change it now. You've been doing it for 10 years.
You never know who's watching. I don't want to offend nobody. But I wouldn't put Goddard and Devontae in the same parlay, but one of them's gonna hit, man. So you said Devontae. I'll go with the tight end because of the numbers we gave off earlier. Another one I'm looking at. All right, this is a bet on a goose egg. I'm going to Jahan Dotson unders. I know Davis he mentioned him earlier. Maybe likes him a little.
No, I only like him for show. I like him for showdown because no one's going to have him. But yeah, I like this bet.
It's just a bet on him not doing when they're fully healthy there with the running backs, tight ends, wide receivers. There's not a lot of meat on the bone for anybody else. And for Jahan Dotson, 3 playoff games, he's got 1 reception total. The last 2 playoff games, 0 targets. So you're betting that it's another 0 game, which is, I'm not saying it's likely, but it's likely. Like you got that going for you. So those are some props. Does anybody have any bets like straight up that's not necessarily prop market, but bet market? You guys got anything like that?
I bet the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. When did I bet it? After the barely win against the Broncos.
Okay, so you're sitting on a little future bet. Beer, did anything in the bet market that jumped out to you?
Chiefs money line, and I know it's 1.5. If it's 1, I don't mind, but I could see this game coming
All
down to that last play, somebody going for 2, and it's like a weird 30-29 ending, 29-28, something. We always get a crazy score in the Super Bowl that we rarely have seen. So I would rather pay a little bit more for the Chiefs. So I did that earlier this week, and then it's mainly props for me. Just going to attack the ones I talked about, probably add a few more here during the week, and I'll try to throw all these up that I'm betting on Scores and Odds. If you guys missed this, we'll get them up over there for you.
All right, I'm gonna give you some. I looked at. It kind of jumped out. All right, first of all, both teams to successfully convert a 4th down conversion. Yes.
Yeah, that should be minus 9 million.
Give me that one. I think that's a pretty good one. Sacks. Chiefs more sacks. Team with the most sacks. KC minus 160. You're paying some juice, but Philly they just don't blitz. I just don't see them blitzing in this game. They're gonna have to have a player beat their man to get a sack on Mahomes, who's already really good at getting the ball out just before he gets sacked anyway. And then on the flip side, you've got one of the most exotic blitzing coaches the game's ever seen against a quarterback who can sometimes get rattled against the blitz when you pressure him. So KC for the most sacks over Philly seems like a good one. Time of possession. KC is plus 140. Time of possession win. Like, Philly's built on explosive plays, man. They're a running team, sure, but they really at their best when they have explosive plays. Philly's going to drop back, and KC's just going to dink and dunk all the way down the field. Just don't turn the ball over. And I think they're going to win the time of possession. You're getting plus 140 on that one. I like that one. Most tackles and assists combined. Chris Jones versus Jalen Carter. Give me Chris Jones. Jalen Carter's he's going to play the middle. He usually doesn't move around at all. He's dead in the middle there. They're not going to run the ball at Jalen Carter. They're just not going to do it. They're too smart for that. But on the flip side, you're going to get Saquon's going to get his 20 carries, and Jalen Hurts is going to quarterback sneak, and he's going to quarterback scramble a little bit. Like the odds are just with Chris Jones at plus 220 to have more tackles and assists. Right?
It's a good number.
Here goes a good one for you. I got one for you right here. This one is off. This one's like it's plus 2,500, so you're not supposed to hit this one. But I've already mentioned it. A little precursor on Worthy. I think they line him up in the backfield a little bit. I think they find a way to get him the ball, the matchups, all that good stuff. First player in this game with 20-plus rushing yards total. Xavier Worthy, plus 2,500. One in around to start the game. One little lineup in the backfield, the swing pass that's behind the line of scrimmage, and he breaks it for 20 yards. You're plus 2,500 richer, man, off of your $100. So, yeah, those are some of the bets that you necessarily can't get on the prop market.
I like over 7.5 players to record a rush. So you have Barkley, Hurts, maybe Gainwell, maybe Shipley. Doesn't even matter. Goddard had 2 last week, by the way, which I like. But then on the Chiefs, you have Mahomes, Hunt, Pacheco, possibly Pirine, Worthy. Then they've also been lining up. They called a timeout, so they didn't end up running it, but they lined up Kelsey or Gray. I can't remember which one to do the sneak. So there you go. There's 8. And if you get Gainwell and Shipley, it's like you're printing. Or if you get a Devonta Smith or whatever, you might get 9.
Yeah, you might get 9. All right, guys, we've come to that time of the show. We got to give a prediction on the game. We got the Chiefs minus 1.5, 48.5 is our total. Beer, how do you think this thing ends up?
I got to go with the Chiefs here. I the last few years, and this isn't reactionary to that, but okay, this Philly's going to get them. They're going down. They find a way to win, and we've mentioned it many times. Mahomes is just seasoned in this game. Andy Reid with 2 weeks to prepare for this game. Nobody's better with additional time. So, Philadelphia may have the better roster. I think Kansas City has that it factor. I'm not going to talk about the refs and the NFL wants a three-peat. Just looking at the game, I think the Chiefs win. Total, I'm kind of staying away from because I could see both kind of scenarios. This could be another high-scoring game. This could be a kind of ugly game. So I lean the under there, but that Chiefs money line is my favorite bet on a spread, on a total. I think the Chiefs pull off the three-peat.
Davis, Chiefs, Phillies, what's your prediction?
My prediction is it's a very tight, very tense game. The Eagles are the better team the whole time. The Eagles will have one really bad turnover. Don't know if it'll be a pick. Don't know if it'll be a fumble, muffed punt, something that'll flip the field. The Chiefs will get a pass interference. Let's say Hollywood draws the pass interference in the end zone, 1 yard touchdown. Eagles have the ball to end. It's 3rd and 7 on the 43-yard line. Hurts takes a 9-yard sack, heaves the ball up on 4th and 16. Jalen Watson comes down with it. Chiefs win.
Okay, fair enough. I'm glad we're on the same page here, guys. We all think the Chiefs are just going to grind this thing out again. I really, honestly, over this run, I thought they were the better team a lot of times. A lot of these times, these last couple of years, I did not think they were the better team, not nearly as good as their opponent. I thought they had no chance of going into Baltimore last year and winning that. That Baltimore team was really good with Lamar and that defense. They did it. Somehow they do it. They continue to do it over and over and over. So I want to roll with them in a tight win. Again, cover the spread. I just don't see it being a high-scoring game. I think it's going to be limited possessions, dink and dunk on one side, run on the other, clock consistently moving. So I kind of like the under there, but I'm going to take the Chiefs for a win here. Maybe a little walk-off Harrison Butker field goal or something like that. And that's going to be my prediction, guys. We appreciate you tuning in for this show. And for every show we've done this year, this is going to wrap it up for the 24-25 NFL season. Don't get me started on any of this spring football. I want to take a break now, guys. I don't want to pick nothing up until maybe August when I'm doing some best balls. But no USFL for me. But we're good here, guys. We appreciate you tuning in. Good luck in all those GPPs. For Beermaker, for Davis, behind the scenes, our producer Steve, and everybody who's come on this show this year to do these pre-locks, we appreciate you. Good luck. Till next year, we're out of here.